Welcome to Even Just a Little, where we explore the beautiful gift of choice, tiny trusts toward big freedom, those moment-to-moment decisions we make that build life. Today, I am eagerly anticipating chatting with my new friend, Kasen Wysong, who is a fantasy novelist, as well as a very busy dad of 3 boys, and also has a full-time job. So we are just talking with one busy fellow who's taking time to chat with us. And I think you're going to be truly blessed by his story. And I hope we can dive a little into our creative processes, how art and writing intersect, just maybe some of the similarities and differences that might make a difference in somebody's day to day. So welcome, Kasen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sherri. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, so I understand you grew up in Ukraine, and I'd love to hear how perhaps that impacted your journey. I always like to dive into the how you landed as a novelist. Do you think that piece of your life impacted your decision? And did you actually start writing as a youngster, or was it something you dove into later in life?
That's a great question. And I think it definitely had an impact on me. So I grew up in Ukraine from ages 3 to 16. And
Okay.
this was kind of, well, clearly before the war, before the westernization of Ukraine. So it was very much like a heavy Soviet influence during the time when I was growing up there. A lot of drab, sort of melancholy colors, and all the men are wearing black or gray, and all the women more traditional attire. The markets at the time were outdoor, so you'd go and you'd buy your food at these different stalls. And over the course of the 13 years I was there, I saw them they build like crazy. I mean, there were cranes all over the city. They put together supermarkets that rivaled Walmart. I mean, it really was leaps and bounds in terms of progress for the city, and that was cool to see. I would say, as far as the creative inspiration, it definitely had an impact on me because I was a little bit instilled with an insatiable curiosity, just having grown up in an international school, people from all over the world. I was always excited and ready to hear about new places, to talk to new faces, and I think books became a way for me to kind of go beyond our little school of 130 kids, and just introduce myself to new worlds and new characters. And so I dove in with Brian Jakes and his Redwall series, and then I became part of his membership club. It was really cool, and I loved that. And then I read a lot of different authors like Tolkien and um, Lewis. Robert Jordan, a lot of different fantasy authors as I was growing up. And
Yeah.
it was all great. It really fueled my own writing because basically I was like, hey, I think this is awesome. I know what it's doing for me. At one point I called the Wheel of Time my second life. And so I was like, I think it's a cool idea when you're able to give someone access to a world that they've never even heard about. And if you're able to bring them into it and show it to them, and you're the painter or the creator of it, um, it, it's a pretty neat feeling, like just to see the joy on their face and to see the betrayal when a beloved character might die. And so all of that was really intriguing to me, and I knew that storytelling was something I wanted to do with my life. One quick story I'll tell real quick on that point is I actually we would ride marshutkas, which were these old buses. They rocked with every foot. It was very loud, and everyone's crammed in there like sardines. And we'd have to. This is kind of pre the iPhone, and so cell phones were these blocks that you could throw against a concrete wall, then put back together, and they were fine. And so there wasn't a lot in terms of entertainment. It was really the books you were reading or the people you were with talking. And so at one point, myself and some friends, I just started telling them a story. I just made it up on the spot. And that became a 3 or 4 hour conversation where I was telling them this story about them in this fantasy realm that I was making up. And we were in middle school at the time, so it's a little bit, some of them were like, "All right, this is a little weird," but they loved it, and we just it kind of felt like as close as I'll ever be to being one of those like grizzled old warriors in a tavern telling stories by the fire. So it was a cool experience for me, and definitely I think unlocked something. And I was like, I really want to write a book and lean into that passion.
So it began with you and your friends, and you created a drama using them in your story. So do you think that was do you think that was the point you decided that's the direction you were heading, or was it just fun? You just enjoyed it and
I, I think it was just fun at that time. It's hard to pinpoint an exact moment, but I know that after that experience, I thought, "Ooh, I've got something here. I can do this. I can tell stories." And I would say that legitimized this hobby that I had, which was,
Mhm.
I believe I'd already begun writing a little bit on the side. So I
Mhm.
think that fueled the fire and really helped to stoke the creative juices, and I just went all in and was like, okay, I'm going to write a book.
So have you continued to write? So you had your first book published when you were pretty young, right?
I was it so sorry, doing some quick math real quick. I think I was around 24.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
And so have you just continued to write since then? And tell me a little bit about your creative process. How does that work? And how in the world do you find quiet time to do that with a six, a three, and a 1 year old? Oh my
It-
goodness.
It's wild.
But you probably get some great inspiration from those little guys.
I do for
Yeah.
sure. They're
Yeah.
no end of just they're a lot of fun to be around. So and the worlds they create with their little action figures, I can't hold a candle to. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is so true, isn't it? The best little imaginations ever. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's part of why I still write is because there's not a lot in my life that instills wonder still. Like into
Oh,
adulthood, it's like, okay, I've got my mortgage, I've got my car payments. There's very little where I feel a sense of wonder, but I think I sometimes on quiet mornings when I'm writing, I can still feel a little bit of wonder. And so I keep going for that aspect of it.
I can assure you that's why I paint. That's why I
Mm,
paint. The play, the delight in the creativity, but also the subject matter. I like to paint what brings delight or wonder. So those little fellas, they have a natural ability to live in wonder. So I think that's beautiful that that's part of your motivation. I love to find out the
thank you.
why. So, is there a piece of you that wants to share that wonder? Do you think that motivates you to share your stories with other people, or what is your why there? I kind of talked a little bit about how you got there, but why do you continue? The
For sure.
wonder for you, but what else?
I think writing very much like painting. There's kind of this pureness to it, and I believe a lot of people also get stuck in the routine and in doing the same thing day in and day out, and life is a little bit of a gray square. And so I think it's an amazing opportunity and almost calling, I would say, to be
Yeah.
able, if you can, bring a little bit of color to their day-to-day lives. So that's certainly part of it. I do tell a lot of my writer friends though, you can't write for, because I'm part of a guild. Well, we call ourselves the Writers Guild,
I
so a
love it.
writers group. But I tell them you can't write for other people. You
Right.
can't write a book for it to be read. You
Right.
need to write it for the sake of the endeavor, because nobody might ever read it, and I mean, hopefully people do, but you need to be okay with the fact that even if no one ever does, you wrote that book and it means something to you and it unlocks something in your soul. So that's I try and keep, no matter how well or not well my books are doing, I try and keep uh the writing kind of this pure form of
Mhm.
expression, and it has its a very unique value in my life, because I would say there's little payoff in terms of the amount of time I put in, but there's infinite payoff in terms of how it fuels my soul and really makes me feel like I have a purpose.
Mhm.
So that aspect of it is really great for me. Um, and I did take a kind of a break, a hiatus from, I would say, maybe like 10th grade. So we moved back to the US in 11th grade. And when we moved, I stopped writing for a while. It was really in college, maybe like 5 or 6 years later, that I rediscovered my book and was like, I'm gonna polish it up. I'm gonna write it now as an adult and just publish it and put it out to the world. But during that hiatus, one experience I had was I was hiking up a mountain in Colorado with some friends, and this was in the summertime, but it's the Rockies, and so we're going through 2 feet of snow.
Mhm.
We've got trash bags, and we're skiing down the slope on our trash bags, and I ended up losing control, slammed into a tree. I mean, and we're talking very steep inclines. Slammed into a tree at the bottom of it with so I bruised my spinal cord, or
Mhm.
my spine, and they cut a hole in the backpack, slid me through, and then one of the guys basically carried me off the mountain while the others sort of supported him. So it was a crazy experience. When as I was recovering, though, because this was part of a work trip, I spent a lot of time reading the Brothers Karamazov under a lean-to, because I was manning the fire. So we were clearing a lot of land. So we'd put the trees through the wood chipper, and I ended up being the guy who manned the burn piles, because it was just something I could sit there all day under my lean-to and not have to move. So that's what
Oh,
I ended up
yes.
doing, and I
Mhm.
decided, I was like, just having read Dostoevsky's, I was like, I'm going to finish my book. And so that's kind of where somehow or another I found it on a flash drive. And then I worked for, it was several more years before I finally was able to get it to a point I could publish it. But that's kind of the story of how I got to actually finishing my book, because it is a process. So it was a, I mean, for me, it ended up being a decade long process, if I'm doing the
Wow.
math on that.
A decade. That is something that was meant to be, meant to be put out there. It kept coming back. Yeah. Wow.
For sure.
Um, I, I love hearing that aspect. There's so many, I know, of artists that start drawing or start painting when they're ill in bed and can't do
Mhm.
anything else, and then they end up spending the rest of their lives. Frida Kahlo really comes to mind because she had a life of pain like that. But um, I think it is another aspect of the calling piece of this. And I
Mhm.
loved your explanation of purity. As you were saying that, I thought I, I don't think I've ever heard it articulated. I've thought
Mm.
those thoughts, and I know other artists, creatives, musicians, whatever the creator's doing. I think that purity, as long as we keep it true to what I just have to put this out there. That's it. And
Right. Yeah.
that's hard to explain unless you're one of those people doing it. But I so fully respect and understand what you just said, and think it's so important for all creatives to hear. We can't know the end. We can't know what's going to happen with what we create. Our job is just to get it
Mm.
out there. And we hope somebody will see it because of the time and the years. And like a decade of your life that was being nurtured and finally grew. And um, so, what is
I always think
your?
of it.
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Just on that point, I was gonna say I think of it a lot of times. Like when I did travel during the summers in college, I got to see a lot of really cool things and kind of trip around the world, all for work, but there were moments. And what I told my wife is that the as cool as that was, it it was that much sweeter if I was sharing it with someone. And with her, when we go places and we catch a sunset or something like that, it's just there's no comparison to what I felt by myself to when I'm experiencing it with her. And I think that's just part of human nature. We want others to share in the joy, the wonder, the the value of what we're making. And so there's definitely something that's happening that's personal. It has to be personal, but uh, it is like you do hope that someone else kind of takes that same sort of uh, piece of it with them when they view the artwork or when they read the book.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, there is purpose behind what we're doing. So obviously, we want someone else to find value in it, but that can't be my. If I start like you said, if I start trying to create something for someone else, it's I call it kind of plastic or flat, or my when my motive is pure and I can really get into a project uh and trust it'll go where it needs to go. But my one of my favorite things is to be at an art show and being able to share what I've done for people to experience it. And n- never is it. I think when I first started, it was about selling art because I had to prove that to myself that I could do it. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not. It's just if somebody connects with it, that's great. So how do you, as an author, how do you because I rarely experience that now because I don't do that many shows. But how do you experience someone experiencing your work? How does that happen as a writer?
That's a great question. I think for me, it is constrained a little bit too, because I don't have like a massive fan base or anything. So it's constrained a little bit to like my inner circles, family members, friends, the writers group I referenced. I've gotten messages too from people I know but not super well that have really just lifted my spirits and been like, okay, cool, I can do this because they don't really have a reason to text me beyond they truly loved the book and they had my contact info and were like, I want to tell them this. And so you know what I mean, kind of like a secondary acquaintance. Like I'm not truly good
Yeah.
friends, but they know me.
Well, and
Um,
they had to make an effort to do that.
right, which
Yeah, so
just
that says a lot.
is it's really uplifting because I think writing and probably the same for painting, it can be a very lonely endeavor. A
Absolutely.
lot of isolation. We usually we love it, but we also like there's a point where it's like, okay, I want to leave my island and I want the world to know what I've been creating here. So so it's nice when you get external feedback and validation of your efforts.
Yes, for sure. Well, um, so do you tell me about how you, as it sounds like you work a lot, not
Mhm.
only with your writing, but how do you balance? How do you, I know with young children, it's demanding just to take care of them, when they're as small as your children are. So how do you do it? How do you balance what little choices do you make that you think contribute to keeping your family running as smoothly as a young family of five is going to run? I mean, I don't know that smooth is I don't think that's really part of the equation at that point. And you
It's not an
definitely
option.
will. You definitely will look back on it fondly. You definitely will. Yeah. Oh,
it's a little hard to to see that currently. It's like, oh, there's a lot going on. I mean, I wish I could spend all my time with my family, but
Oh,
I do. So I have a full-time job. Writing is mainly for me. It does not happen unless it's either in the early morning or later at night. So
okay.
to get my trilogy finished, I was very militant about waking up at 5 a.m., being at my computer by 5:30, and then writing until 7:30 a.m., which was generally when the rest of the family started waking up.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, okay, I can engage. And I did that every morning for a few years, just because it was the only way. Currently, I'm a little more fluid with my schedule. I work in Charlotte 3 days a week, and so I'm able to get evenings, some free time in the evenings, and so I chip away at my books then. I
Okay.
still like waking up, but I do lose 2 mornings, and so I still like waking up early when I can.
Yeah.
Not so much at 5 a.m. These days, but every now and then, like this morning, I got up at 5, and it's great when I can catch an hour or two. I think people underestimate how far an hour or two a day will get you
Mm.
over even 90 days, but like over the course of a year, I mean, you can have a really solid book finished. And one of the thoughts that scares me is that there are these stories that I have inside me that I'll never put down on paper just because I don't have time. And I just don't believe that's true. I think we can carve out time even when we don't think we can.
Yeah.
And it's just figuring out where to shuffle things, how to make it work. So it's definitely an ongoing battle because I can't just kick up my feet for 6 hours on a Saturday and write on my
Yeah.
laptop. But it does make the moments that I do get to write that much more exciting. Like in the mornings, I'm excited to get up, to get my coffee, to sit down and to work for a
Mm.
couple hours. And I think it's probably the only thing I'd be excited about like that early in the morning. So, you know,
That
um,
says a lot, Kason. That says a lot, though. Yeah. That wonder you're talking about.
right?
Yep. Yeah. Ah, so that to me, that's what this podcast is all about. Those little motivations. I mean, the fact that you're seeking wonder as a
Mhm.
that's just so important. The choice to get up and seek a little wonder, and then you've got it all day in the faces of those little people. But
Right.
yeah, well, so I love your the thought process of um, you're doing it because it's something that you really love to do.
Mhm.
That choice. And do you think that what other choices, if you were encouraging any creative, anybody, because all of us are really creators, what little choices do you think one would need to make to bring that same delight and wonder into their day?
Mhm. I think that well, first off, you have to figure out what works for you.
That's huge. I think
Really obvious, but
that's gigantic. Yeah.
it because really like if someone who's more of a night owl tries doing what I do, they're going to be miserable and
Yeah.
probably it's the wrong time for their creative switch.
Holly, that's really great advice. It really is. Yeah. One size does not fit all here. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that in mind, I think there are a lot of little choices that we don't we might not be considering. For instance, if you work on a laptop all day like I do,
Mhm.
and you have an hour-long lunch break, it's not absurd to pick up a pen and write on a tangible piece of paper. If you have like a story idea, if you're working on art, it is a break from staring at a screen, and you're still
Yeah.
able to fit in some
Mm.
time in your workday. Um,
So change your scenery, change your patterns a little
oh,
bit. Give
huge.
yourself a break. Maybe the choice is to give yourself a break, and that brings some delight in itself. Oh, that's great advice. Yeah.
Well, and I loved what you said there about changing the scenery because I think that you should uh, eliminate as many barriers as possible. If you don't like getting up early, don't. Try at nighttime. If you don't like being up late, try the morning, and then like give yourself, if you really like coffee, make sure you have that cup of coffee every morning waiting for you as like a little reward, something to give you an extra like little spring to your step. Maybe it's not sitting at the kitchen table, but having like a very designated spot where that's where you get your work done. And when you're
Mm.
sitting there, you're zoned in. So I think there's little rewards too that just be on the lookout for as you're trying to fit in this creative time. My wife, so she likes doing pottery actually, and so one
Oh,
of
cool.
it's pretty sweet. She's getting into it. I've told her, I'm like, hey, you got to make me a coffee mug. So
Sounds like
um,
she definitely needs to make you a coffee mug. Yeah.
But well, yeah. So yes, absolutely. So, but one thing I noticed with her, I was like, "Hey, you're not using your pottery wheel that much," and I think it's because we had it shoved up in the garage. It was kind of hard to access, and so
Hmm.
in her mind, it's like, well, it's going to be 15 minutes before I can pull it out, and then I'm only sitting there for half an hour, and then the kids need something, and so we're working on ways right now. Actually, I'm clearing out. This is our an office we have in our backyard, so I'm clearing it out. We're gonna have like a little designated spot where she can work, have her pottery wheel set up and ready to go, and then we'll
Yes.
also add a desk for like the kids homeschooling. And so just trying to reduce the friction, I'd say is really big.
Hmm.
And if you can find ways to do that, that's huge. I think there's also as much as it is adding, like if you're adding a cup of coffee, if you're adding something you enjoy, like a space, a designated space, I think it's just as much, if not more so, eliminating. So my wife and I, for a while, we had these little flags or like blocks that had a TV on one side and a check on the other, and we had basically three nights a week where we allowed ourselves to watch a show, and then we had to be strategic about it. And the nights where it was like, okay, we don't have any show uh, passes left, and it was like, all right, well let's read a book or let's do something creative. And
Oh,
so it was working on books, and I think we still do that to a degree. Really, we don't watch that much TV at all anymore, so it's a little bit of a non-issue. But if it's something where at the end of the day you're tired and you like kicking up your feet and watching Netflix, maybe try and just cut it down a little bit. Or video games is one that comes up a lot in my writers group,
mm,
and I've never really been much of a video gamer myself, so I can't speak to it all that much.
hmm.
But I think it might help if to stoke the fire to get the creative juices flowing, as some of them will defend. But there's a point too where there's diminishing returns, and you just have to sit down and write the book, and not just keep going over the world building in your head. And that's where it might be eliminating some video game time, or
That
being
is
disciplined about
huge. You can think about doing it
that.
for a
Hmm.
long time without actually doing it. And sometimes that's a form of resistance, I think, of
Absolutely.
choosing to do a video game. Oh, golly, that's such great advice. So how about with your children? How do you try to build creativity into their little lives?
Oh, these are great questions.
You're great to talk to, Kason.
Oh,
I mean, this
thanks.
is wonderful. I mean, you are very inspiring. You
Oh,
really
thank
are.
you.
I'm
uh,
enjoying it immensely. Yep.
Oh, I appreciate it. And just an answer to your question, I think it comes really easily with the kids. Kind of the same thing. Like I told my wife, they can have uh, any book they want. They can point at it. They can any book they want. Like we're not worrying about the price. It's like they can have it.
Mm,
So we're again just trying to eliminate barriers there. If they want to read, awesome. We're gonna try and help them to do that. It is too, I think right now they're figuring out what they like to do. And so
mm,
we're trying to expose them to as much as possible and not necessarily get them stuck in, like one of my sons, for instance, he's very much, if he likes a certain food, that's all he wants to eat. If he likes going to one place, like that's where he wants to go. He
oh.
gets it from his mom.
No,
um,
no, which one is this? Six, three, or one?
This would be the 6-year-old. So
Okay.
he's our oldest, and he is very much like he knows what he wants, and he that's what he likes. So he's not very adventuresome in that sense. He's in a lot of other ways he is, but it's cool when we try and gently nudge him from his comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
and make him try a new food. Like my mom used to do this to me all the time with Ukrainian food. I had to try all sorts of stuff. And so with
Like
him,
what? Tell us, give us an example of something you had to try.
I would say galupsi is the first one that popped into my head. It's
Galupsi?
galupsi. It's
Okay.
boiled cabbage wrapped around meat and onions and some other carrots, other foods. So
Yeah.
that's one. There's sala, which is the animal fat, and they make it into kind of this casserole. And so that was a really tough one for me.
That was a little tough for me too. Yeah. Yeah.
But there
The
were
cabbage
also
sounds good though. Yeah.
the galupsi was great actually,
Yeah.
and some of the food I love to this day. It's like one of my favorite foods, like borscht. My mom used to make borscht. Is this stew? Absolutely love it. So you never know. Like some things like salad, maybe it's not really hitting the mark,
Yeah.
but then there is borscht and Kiev chicken and like other things that just absolutely blow your mind, and you're like, wow, this is incredible, and I would have never known unless I had tried it. So
I
um,
think this is an extremely important point, getting out of your comfort zone. So
yes.
helping I know as creatives, that's an enormous part of the process, continually jumping, trying new things, trying new storylines, building new characters, trying new color combos,
Mhm.
trying new shapes. So I think that's a really wonderful thing for young parents to hear. Help your kids get out of their comfort zone. And that can look like so many things, whether it's food, whether it's but not a push, a gentle help them share with them
Nudge. Right.
a gentle nudge out of their comfort zone though, because then you realize the worst thing that can happen is usually very, very minimal. I mean, it's
Right.
more fear of what's going to happen is much worse than what would ever happen. The thought,
Mhm.
thinking about it. So we've kind of made a circle with that. You can think about writing, but you actually have to
Mhm.
get in there and do it. But that comfort, helping our kids get out of their comfort zone. I love that thought.
Well,
Love
and
that
that's a
thought.
great parallel, I think, because a lot of writers, it is like we don't want to query because we're afraid. What if we do get that publishing deal and have to put our work out there for criticism? Or it's what if we're just rejected 100 times in a row? And there's the fear of that, or the fear of sharing an excerpt in your writers group, even though you know these people around you aren't going to judge you and can help you. It's very, very tough because you're
Yes.
sharing a piece of who you are. And so
Absolutely. Yeah, that is so hard. It's so hard. It really is. But I'm 64, and at this point in my life, I think that's what keeps one alive. If you
mm,
quit taking risks, if you stay in your comfort, I mean, this podcast for me, oh my goodness, is so out of my comfort zone. I mean,
oh, you're crushing it right now. This is great though. So
well, it's because I love to talk to you. I had a really good friend named Bob Goff that pushed me into this. He pushed me into this, and I'm still just thinking, what in the world am I? But then I get to talk to you, and it's fabulous. So, uh, well, we've
well,
actually been chatting a while. So, anything you want to close with, other than I want you to tell us about your Mayhem series, because I want people to be able to find it, where they can find it, and any other upcoming things you have. And I would love to chat with you again, Kason. This was so much fun. Yeah.
I'll reiterate. Just thanks for having me on, Sherri. This was really nice. So, and as far as the Mayhem series go, that is available on Amazon. So you can
Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us a little bit about it. Give us a little bit.
for sure. So it is a classic YA adventure story where the protagonists are racing to save the world, and they've got these special powers, each one of them that's actually based on their personality. And so I tried to
I
create a
love
magic
that.
system that was a little bit proportional to like what's in here, more soul related. And I try and delve into and explore some of the classic themes of good versus evil, the duality of man, and all sorts of things along those lines. So, but at its heart, it's just a fun story. Like it's not, I kind of wrote it. It was an adventure for me and hopefully for readers. Um, a lot of action in there, but definitely more kind of in the YA realm. As far as I'd actually like to talk about my new book, though. I have not published it yet, but this is what I'm
Okay.
currently working on,
Oh, tell us.
and I'm really excited about this one because it actually does. Whereas I'd say my trilogy, it definitely has bits of who I am in it, but this new one especially, it incorporates a lot of some past experiences. Growing up in Ukraine, the city where most of the story takes place is based on Kiev, and so there's a lot of
Cool.
parallels there that are kind of fun, and it's a classic. Think of cowboys in Victorian era London, and there's a murder and a mystery. So lots going on there, but it's going to be another sort of grittier, more adult oriented action adventure story. So I'm
Sounds
really excited.
phenomenal. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I hear the excitement. It makes me want to read it. So when do you think you'll have that?
My goal is
How?
by the end of the summer,
Okay.
but we'll see. There's always a deadline, and then it always gets pushed. It feels like so.
Well,
So we'll see.
when you get that book finished, you give me a shout. We'll do this again so we can talk all about it.
Sure. Hey, that
Seriously.
sounds great to me. I
Yeah.
appreciate
So
that.
I'm so grateful. This was so much fun, truly, so inspirational in so many ways. So thank you. Thank you. And I hope our paths continue to cross.
Thank you. This was great. So you have a great day.
Thanks so much. See you again.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks so much for joining us on Even Just a Little.